While JR's recovering from his wounds, we take a break from the current story and return to it in 3 weeks. For the next 2 Wednesdays, there's a special 2-part drama going back to the 1930s to uncover the roots of the bitter rivalry between the Ewings and the Barneses. Dallas, the Early Years, next Wednesday at 7:35.
Next week on BBC2, Gardener's World explores 2 exquisite islands in Lake Maggiore. In the new Radio Times, Dennis Gartside guides us round the gardens, which were once just bare rock. Also set in Italy, Dennis Potter's new film, Visitors, a black comedy of bad manners and sexual intrigue.
Jack's onto something, though, isn't he? About this holiday, I mean.
I'll just turn the tapes off, okay?
No, tell her.
Wry humour in Faye Weldon's new serial, Heart of the Country. And Mrs. Harris hears some bad news.
Perhaps it's more than just a dirty weekend. Perhaps. You all right?
I'm fine.
And a new live comedy series, Hello Mum, featuring the extraordinary Arnold Brown.
I refer constantly to the Radio Times. There, I just mentioned it yet again.
On BBC1, Neris Hughes as the district nurse, taking up a new job and heading straight into trouble.
I don't know why I'm arguing with you, you obnoxious woman. Get out. Get out of this hospital at once.
Nothing would give me greater pleasure. Come on.
Neris Hughes walking into a new series and into the new Radio Times.
And now on BBC1, Anne Robinson opens the postbag to present your points of view.
Hello, good evening, and let's start with a fan letter.
He looks as though he's just got out of bed. His jacket is so screwed up and his hair is all over the place. For the final touch to his scruffy look, he slouches next to the map with his hands in his pockets, occasionally waving at Britain.
And who is this sexy, dishevelled roué who waves at Britain before he's had a wash? Kate Brooks of Cheshire says...
I'm writing about the breakfast time weatherman, Francis. You might try suggesting to him to take a leaf out of Ian McCaskill's book.
Or we could have a whip round to buy him a new jacket because he does seem to have been wearing the same one since Christmas. Or else...
I'm about to take up knitting. Why, I hear you ask. I do hear you ask that, don't I?
The whole of Britain has stopped dead to listen to the answer, Mr. Davis of Totnes.
Well, if a man of, say, around 40, that's me, can change his lifestyle so drastically to start knitting, for pullovers, didn't I explain, then surely the BBC management can change their minds about breakfast time. The pullovers must return. The jumper strikes back with a vengeance. Yours with crossed fingers and thumbs.
Alternatively, Francis could get in touch with Mrs. Rose Martin of Edinburgh. Edinburgh, you notice, another Scottish letter.
The mystery of what happened to our old 1960s living room curtains, dispatched to the jumble sale long ago, is now solved. They are alive and well and doing sterling service as Jasper Carrot's shirt.
Right, let's stay with jazzy-shirted Jasper for a moment, because Carrot Confidential on BBC1 is turning out to be a bit like marzipan. You either love it or you hate it. Here's Dr. Colin-Jones of Hove.
I protest about his non-stop mixture of blasphemy, filth and bad taste with reference to the royal family. He should be banished from TV screens.
And the Reverend MGM Cole of South West London.
Carrot Confidential this evening was silly, stupid, vulgar, lousy, indecent and grossly immoral in thought, word and inference.
On the other hand, Hannah Bagshaw of Chislehurst, who isn't a doctor or a vicar, on account of only being 10, writes...
My family and I absolutely roar with laughter at his brilliant jokes. The reason I like his jokes so much is because they're taken from real-life situations and the funny things people say or do.
Lots more like that, so as a treat for Jasper fans, here's a quick burst of extra clean Carrot.
There was a report last week that said 7 million people in this country were illiterate. Did you read that? Did you read in the papers that the Japanese are negotiating to translate all the Agatha Christie novels into their own language? What a waste of time. The Japanese read back to front by the time they've read... Let me finish the gag, you know?
That was squeaky clean Jasper Carrot. Now, the holiday programme. Terribly popular. You wouldn't be without it. And by the way, for those who mourn the passing of the old casual breakfast time, a chance to see Uncle Frank in a woolly.
I'm housebound and have been for many years, but I can get out and about and see the whole world with my friends on the holiday programme. I got a tan in Mauritius and I made lots of friends at Butlins, courtesy of my TV. Can I make an advance booking for next year? Yours very sincerely, Doris Wilson, Mrs.
Now the moans and groans.
The Holiday 87 Mallorca special. Boobs, bottoms, bodies and booze. The impression the programme gave was that you had two choices, either to climb over endless naked bodies to reach the sea, if you're capable, that is, what a hangover after visiting all those bars and discos, or live like a hermit and drive to the coast in some remote corner of this paradise. If there's a next time, let's see more of the island and less of the boobs. Yours sincerely, Margaret and Dennis Nunney, two Mallorca addicts who, by the way, are not a pair of prim geriatrics.
The other big groan is about the price of some of the holidays. Why, you ask, are there so many expensive ones featured? Mrs. Travis of Cottenham, Cambridge, objects strongly to this.
I don't think that the programme really caters for the average working man in the street. Prices start at £500 per person and even go up to over £1,000 per person. I'm interested to know just what the BBC thinks the average person spends on their holidays. I admit I haven't seen all the programmes, but those I have seen convince me that I have a valid point.
But, Mrs. Travis, you must watch all the programmes. In the first few Holiday 87s, there were some very pricey numbers, but these included the Radio Times competition winners' jaunts. Nevertheless, in the same programmes, there were several holidays under £100, one for a family of 4, and the holiday programme promises that the variety will continue. Now, from shortage of money to lack of taste on the Paul Daniels Show.
There have been many tasteless items on the Paul Daniels Show. A guest pretending to stab himself, the juggling of expensive food items, a chicken and margarine. But last Saturday, the item with Mr. Daniels on the racetrack was far, far worse. Not letting Mike Smith in on the gag, so he genuinely thought Mr. Daniels was in trouble when he waved his flag, was a cruel, insensitive and wholly questionable prank. It made me sick.
Says Jonathan Wilson of Blundell Sands, although I have to say they very easily feel sick in Blundell Sands, ever such a posh place, the sort of northwest answer to Tunbridge Wells. But Mr. Wilson isn't alone. Here's Jeanette Schmid-Worrell of Oxshott.
Last night's act with Crate, Crane and Mike Smith probably didn't trigger only our memories. Surely this trick could have waited a few more months, been brought in a different way, or been forgotten altogether. It wasn't that good.
So what about some good news, I hear you cry? Sorry, Janice Long and Top of the Pops are next on the hit list. Miss Long having had the temerity to question the taste of those who like Michael Crawford in his video from Phantom of the Opera. Here's Lucy Butler of Leigh-on-Sea.
Speaking as a perfectly normal, not frumpy or boffy 17-year-old, I would just like to point out that teenagers' tastes are more discerning than Janice Long's. This insensitive lady, when introducing Music of the Night from Phantom of the Opera, added, laughing sarcastically, I suppose some people might call this a good tune. I would just like to say to Miss Long, thanks all the same, but the music is perfectly capable of speaking for itself without any remarks of yours.
That was Janice Long being put in her place by Lucy Butler on behalf of dozens of you. And here's Michael Crawford's music to speak for itself.
Slowly, gently, night unfurls its splendor. Grasp it, sense it, tremulous and tender. Hearing is believing, music is deceiving. Hard as lightning, soft as candlelight. Dare you trust the music of the night?
That was Michael Crawford's music speaking for itself, which brings us to Emlyn Hughes, who can't keep his hands to himself.
In Thursday's programme of A Question of Sport, Emlyn Hughes was a positive embarrassment, not only to the viewers, but to Princess Anne, who sometimes looked mildly uncomfortable. Hughes's continuous thumping on the bench in a state of affectation was a grotesque display of morbid exhibitionism.
Which is a lot of big words to throw at a footballer. Anyway, George Lansbury of Hatfield continues.
I was sincerely hoping that Princess Anne would give this affected twit a hefty kick in the shins, or clout his ego with her handbag.
Other viewers complain that in this 200th edition of the programme, Princess Anne was given far too many easy horsey questions, Bill Beaumont's team was rubbish, and what's the world coming to when royalty appear on quiz shows? And while we're on sports programmes, spare time for the anguished plea of a child.
Dear TV, please stop the sport because my daddy watches it all the time and I miss all my TV programmes. From James Wright, Steeple Bumstead.
Now, with great relief at the last minute, I'm delighted to say I found a few letters about a programme you actually liked. In fact, it gave an enormous amount of gentle pleasure.
Well done to Songs of Praise. Sunday's broadcast from Belfast was a wonderful testament to peace. School pupils gave us a vision that politicians, church leaders and all men of violence should have taken to heart. To me, the programme echoed the sentiments of Picasso. Let the young take the reins of power. The singing of Bridge Over Troubled Waters was the finest moment on television all year. Yours in peace, Joseph Jenkins.
Thank you, Joseph Jenkins. And let's move on. A number of indignant parents of small children have written protesting about the AIDS ad going out as early as 5:30 in the evening. Anne Reid of Box in Wiltshire sums it up.
I think everything that's being done to combat AIDS is fantastic. However, how dare anybody put me in the position of having to explain the details of sex, let alone the words sexual intercourse and condom, to my 9-year-old before I have decided to. I thoroughly object to the government and the BBC and other channels for taking this right away from me.
I think Mrs. Reid has a very valid point. And since this show seems to have turned into one long grass, what better way to end than with another complaint?
I think it's disgusting the amount of time they give us to write down the addresses. I managed to get yours down by writing and memorising, but sometimes they're gone by the time you blink.
Well, for all those whose joined-up writing is a bit on the slow side, the address will stay on your screens for ages tonight. And to count us out, here's the choir of Grosvenor High School, Belfast.